After 38 days of arguments, the big Aadhaar case in the Supreme Court is finally finished. The 5 judges of the Constitution bench now have to decide whether or not Aadhaar is constitutionally valid and whether it can be made mandatory for everything, whether all the information collected needs to be destroyed. So now we know what the basic arguments are in all of this, right? So we have the petitioners on one side, which is a bunch of social activists, an ex-judge, ex-army people from all walks of life who raised these petitions to famous lawyers to argue why Aadhaar was a problem. They said it violates the right to privacy, which was upheld last year by the Supreme Court. They said that it allows the government to conduct surveillance on you. They said that it allows for exclusion of vulnerable people who either if they don't have an Aadhaar card or if their authentication, using their biometrics doesn't work, they're not able to get essential public subsidies and benefits and welfare schemes, including, by the way, children in midday meal schemes. They talk about the fact that you don't really have a choice here. It takes your choice away. You're being forced to have to get an Aadhaar card for all these things, and not just get an Aadhaar card, but give away your biometric details and a lot of personal information. They also talked about how not just is sort of the sum and substance for our problem, even the way it's all been done is a problem. They talked about the lack of security and the way there's so much scope for misuse and leaks. They talked about the fact that when Aadhaar was brought in, it wasn't even brought in through proper legislation, but actually brought in a way where there was no real regulation, no real authority to collect stuff. And when finally the act was brought in 2016, it was brought as a money bill, which allowed the government to basically railroad it through Parliament without actually getting any debate by the Rajya Sabha or even by even the President having a chance to review it. Now, obviously, the government didn't want to just come and agree with everything these guys said. So the government, along with the UIDAI and a bunch of private companies, including supposedly Bill Gates, has the same view according to them. They all came up and said, look, Aadhaar is all about fighting fraud, it's about fighting corruption, and at the end of the day, Indian people all needed a form of identification which they supposedly didn't have. And they argue that, don't worry, it's all perfectly safe. Even when everything was collected prior to the Aadhaar Act, it was done in a way where none of those people could retain data. They argue then that, look, even if there is a sort of impingement and infringement of people's right to privacy, there is a legitimate state interest. And this is important. So this legitimate state interest allows the government to say, look, we will intrude a little bit in your lives because it's important for the sake of solving all these other social issues. So that is what they said. They said even though there was no act, prior to the act there was enough security, and after the Aadhaar Act has come through, the possibility for misuse is gone. You have strong safeguards against this data being sold off or being replicated. So in some substance they said everything is fine. They even argued that this whole issue on the money bill was a non-issue because at the end of the day, you have a link between sort of public subsidies and services and Aadhaar, and that is enough to make it constituted as a money bill. And in a bit of a cop-out, they're like, even if there is a problem, it doesn't matter because, the money bill can only be certified by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, which was done in this case, and once that's done, the courts can't look into it. So the last couple of days of the hearings now have been the petitioners coming up with the final set of rejoinders to say why the government hasn't successfully defended the case. So what have they said? They've said the government needs to show that Aadhaar is a proportionate or maybe even the best way to actually, and the only way to achieve their legitimate state interests, which are preventing fraud, corruption, trying to ensure that there is no leakage. But what these guys have shown is that there is no proof that Aadhaar is the only way to do this. It in fact actually disproportionately harms people who shouldn't be harmed, whether it's midday meal scheme recipients, kids who are not going to get it because they don't have an Aadhaar, or it's people who are trying to get benefits under the manual scavengers rehabilitation program, desperately needed resources, not getting it because they don't have an Aadhaar card. Why is it that you have to go about it in this way only? Or even bank accounts. You're presuming by saying that Aadhaar is needed for bank accounts, otherwise your bank account will be frozen, or you're a money launderer. You're presuming people are money launderers even though there's no evidence to prove that. So, on what basis is the state claiming that this is a proportionate, sensible way to show legitimate state interest? Lastly, and this is a big point because it could lead to the whole thing coming crashing down, is the question of the money bill. They say what the government did with pushing through the Aadhaar Act and keeping it the way it is right now violates the basic structure of the Constitution. Because the Rajya Sabha should have had a chance to debate on this, the President should have had a chance to reject the bill. Without that, you're removing the checks and balances which the Constitution has. So, what are the options which are now left to decide how this case will go on? One is obviously that the court says, look, everything's fine, the government's right, Aadhaar is perfect, don't do anything. Which means very soon you will be forced to link it to everything, not just public subsidies, you will be forced to link it to your bank accounts, mobile phones, everything. The other option is that they say, okay, we'll strike down everything about it, which means the Aadhaar database gets destroyed, you're not forced to link it to anything at all. Other options include sort of midway points where it's made compulsory for only public services but not for others. They improve safeguards to make sure people aren't excluded. These are some of the options which come. The court has a lot to play with. The judges have a lot to think about. They have to think of all these arguments, everything which has been said. But perhaps the best way to sum it up in the question before them is in the words of Shyam Dewan, one of the lawyers for the petitioners. He has said that the question before the courts is a simple one. Does Aadhaar stand the test of the first 5 words of the Constitution of India? Those are, we, the people of India. These words imply freedom, they imply choice, they imply democracy. Does Aadhaar, in the way it's been brought about, actually satisfy each of those values? We'll see what the courts have to say in, hopefully, a short period of time.